Welcome, I'm Preston with Sprattronics Learning Lab, and today we are going to be creating the game Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird is a game that was developed in 2013, early on with iPads and touchscreen devices, and it was downloaded by millions of people. The idea behind the game is simple. You're a bird that falls, and every time you tap on the screen, the bird flies up just a little bit. The game is so simple and such a great game to learn basic gameplay loop, obstacles, and how to keep score. Excellent. So this is Flappy Bird. Flappy Bird is very straightforward. Now, let's talk about our philosophy on making games. We believe that you should make games in order to become a better coder and a better designer. You'll grow in your critical thinking when you make games. Now, I know you could make a game by following a tutorial and going step by step, but that to me is just cookbook learning. It's recipes, and if you follow the recipe, you get the same result. We want you to create your game, to come up with the solutions on your own. So what we do in our game development course is we tell you the challenge of your game. We'll show you the game and we'll tell you the core functions of that game. We break it down into bite-sized steps and then launch you to go try to accomplish those steps on your own. We will absolutely show you our solution and how we would do it, but you learn so much more if you try each of these bites first and try them on your own. So when we break down Flappy Bird, here's what we're going to make and the process we're going to do to make it. We're going to make an object that represents our main character. We're going to apply a constant force so that character falls towards the floor. Next, we're going to create a world with a floor. Then, we're going to create our objects on the right side of the game area, and they're going to travel across. These are going to be our obstacles. Finally, we're going to detect when our character collides with the floor or when it collides with an object. And then at the end, we're going to make a score where your score goes up every time you pass one of the obstacles. Let's go to Scratch to create our game. When you're on Scratch, this is the screen that I see when I log in. And the way I make a new game is I click on Create. Step one of our project is to create our character. And our character, I want it to look like a bird. So the first thing I do is I usually delete this sprite here by clicking the X. And a sprite is our character. It's our object. So I'm going to click on Choose a Sprite. We click, and then I'm going to go look at animals. I want a bird, and I want a bird that looks like it's flapping its wings. If I hold my mouse over the image, I can see what the animation looks like. So for this build, we're going to choose a toucan. And I like this toucan because two of those images look like it's flying. So we'll click on toucan, and it already gives it its name, toucan. This area is our stage, and it's laid out in a grid with the absolute middle being 0, 0. We get negative numbers as we go to the left of the screen, positive numbers as we go to the right. And then for our y-axis, we get positive numbers as we go up and negative numbers as we go to the bottom of the screen. I'm going to put my toucan at 0, 0. Next, we're going to give this some code. We will be starting our code with an event when the green flag is clicked. That just means when we click start on our game, what should happen? And I want my bird to go back a little bit. So I'm going to say go to -120. And I'm going to change that Y to 0. And our bird goes there. It's in the middle of the screen. I want to change how our bird looks. So I'm going to say looks, and I'm going to tell it to switch costume. And I want it to be one of the costumes that looks like it's flying. And I can click on costumes up here. These are frames of our animation. A is sitting still, B, the wings are up, and C, the wings are down. I like toucan B with those wings up. So when I push the play button, my toucan goes here. And I want to change that size. I'm going to click here and I'm going to change my size to about 50%. I want my toucan to be a little bit smaller than what it looks like. The first part of your game, can you make it so that this object is constantly falling unless you are clicking the space bar or clicking with your mouse pointer? How would you go about doing that? I'm going to do it by saying when this is clicked and creating a variable. And our variable is going to be called gravity. And this is just pulling our object down. So when we click the green button, we're going to set gravity to 0. And then we want to say, we're going to show you 2 ways to do this. The first way is going to work, but it's going to have a glitch. And then we'll show you a way to fix that. So we're going to choose our if, then, else button. And we're going to be sensing. If the space key is pressed, then let's tell it to change Y by 10. And if we're not pressing the space key, we're going to tell it to change Y by -5. So let's push our green button and see what happens. It only moved 1 step, and that's because we need to make this a forever loop. So we'll do Control, and then we'll say forever. Push the green button again, and our bird falls. We'll push the green button, and now if I press spacebar, I start to go up. Another thing I can do is I can hold the spacebar, and I'll just fly all the way up. We don't want our code to do that. We don't want the spacebar to make you fly nonstop. Now, if your version of this game was to use a rocket pack, absolutely, that might make sense. But instead, we want it so that you can press the spacebar and then you have to let go before you can flap again. Here's how we're going to change that. Here's our solution for making it so our bird is always falling. We're going to just get rid of that if-else that we had, and we'll add another forever loop. And let's say variables, change gravity by -1, and forever we want to change Y by gravity. This should let our bird start and just fall. And it'll fall faster as time goes on because we keep changing our gravity by -1. Next thing we need to do is give our bird the option to click and make it go up. So we'll go to Control. We'll say if, and then we're sensing. If the space is pressed, and we could say space or mouse click by using this operator that says blank or blank. So we'll put spacebar pressed. We'll also go over here to sensing, and we'll change it to mouse click. If space is pressed or any keys pressed, we want to change that variable of gravity, set gravity to 10. And then let's test and see, does this work? I can press the space bar, but similar to earlier, I can just hold it down. So we're going to tell it has to wait. So we go to Control, and we say wait until, and we're going to do an operator called not spacebar pressed. So this means you have to let go of the spacebar. So I can tap it, and it goes up. I can't hold it down. I always have to let go. We finished the first step of our game. We have created a character that falls unless you press the spacebar to make it fly. Now, this is a super basic game where you could just play it and try to keep it in the air, but we want to start adding some new things to it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a game world. Over here, it says stage. The stage is going to be your backdrop, or what your screen looks like. We're going to click on choose a backdrop. Now you could click and select from the list, but I'm going to paint my backdrop. You can edit your images right inside Scratch. I want to change my color to light blue, and I'm just going to create a big square for my screen. This is my sky. So now my bird is flying on the sky. I'll click back on my toucan, and I want my toucan to look like it's flapping every time we press the spacebar. So we're going to go to looks, and we are going to tell it to switch costume to costume C. And then we want to go over here for ever. Every time it's traveling down, we're going to switch the costume to toucan B. So let's try this out. Every time I push the spacebar, you'll see I get a little flap in there. And so now our bird looks like it's flying in the sky. We are ready for the next step of our build. Can you figure out how to make objects appear on the screen on the right and slide to the left? We need to create an object, so we're going to go to choose sprite, and I'm going to paint my sprite. In the Flappy Bird game, there are these green pipes, and I'm making a clone of it, so I'm going to make them as close as possible. So let's make a long tube, and then we'll make our pipe right there. And I'm going to scoot this, undo. I need to click the select button. I want to scoot this whole thing over so it's right in the middle. And I might make it go up quite a bit. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to copy that. And now I've got a second one, and I can rotate it around. And now I have my obstacle. My obstacle, though, I'm going to go ahead and click hide, because I don't want you to see it on the screen. We need to change the code of our obstacle to make it show up. So we'll go back to events. When we click the green button, so when the game starts, we want to tell it to forever wait 3 seconds. And then we want it to create a clone of itself. We want those clones to be what actually move. So when I start as a clone is my next piece of code. What this means is when you create another instance of that sprite or a clone of that sprite, what should happen? And what I'll say is, first we want it to show. Then we want it to go onto the screen. And so we will tell it to go to, we want it to be right in the middle of the screen. So we'll do 0. And let's say we want it to be all the way over on the right. So we'll say 270. So we should have some clones appearing over here. It just showed up. There it is. And we could scoot that over a little bit farther. Maybe we'll say 290. But we want them to travel to the left. So then we will say, repeat until. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell it to keep moving to the left until it gets all the way to the left side of the screen. So I need an operator for this. So repeat until, and we're going to say X position. That's where you are horizontally on the screen until your horizontal position is less than 260. And we want to make that a negative 260 because we're going to the left of the screen. What we'll do is we will just change X by -5. And it should have our objects moving to the left. There they go. And then we have it stopping when it gets to negative 260. What we want to have happen is we want it to delete itself. So after we've repeated until, then delete this clone. So what we should see now is after 3 seconds, our obstacles start appearing. They slowly go across the screen, and then they disappear when they hit the left side. And now we're flapping along. Our game's coming along pretty nicely, but nothing happens when we run into one of these pipes. So let's make it so that when you run into a pipe, you get a game over screen. We're going to create another object. We're going to draw a sprite or paint a sprite. And what we'll do is we'll just use the text tool and we'll text or type We're going to type game over. And we'll make this bigger and put it right in the middle of our screen. I'm going to change the name of it. So sprite game over. And I want to change my obstacle sprite and just call it obstacle. Having names on all your objects is very helpful for the code to make sense. So on game over, let's click on code. When we start the game, so events, when the green button is clicked, we don't want it to be game over right away. So let's tell it to hide when the game is clicked. Awesome. So it hit it. And then we want it to wait until we get a message. And messages or signals are ways where we can make lots of things happen. So when I receive, and we're going to call it game over. When I receive game over, we want it to go to the middle of the screen, which is 0, 0. So we'll say go to X, 0, Y, 0. And then we want to go to looks and say show. But we still don't have any time where game over is going to be broadcast. So we're going to go back to our toucan. And we are going to tell our toucan. On our toucan, we have this forever loop. And it says constantly change the toucan's Y by gravity and change the costume. We're going to add an if in there. So if then. And we do sensing, and we pick this one that says touching. If touching obstacle. We'll go to control, and we will say, actually this is events, and we'll say broadcast game over. Then we'll click on our game over sprite. We want it to show, and then we want it to tell everything to stop. So we'll hit control, and we'll say stop all. So now we should be able to fly, and we'll miss the first obstacle. But if we run into this next one, we should get a game over screen. This is fine, but now let's add some variety to our game. We're going to click on obstacle. We don't want a straight line of obstacles to show up. We want them to shift just a little bit up and down on the screen. So we can use something called an operator and pick random. And so I'm going to change this to pick a random number between 100 to 100. And we're going to put this in the Y spot over here. So go to X 290 and Y 0. We want to make that Y a little bit random. So now we can push play. And our very first obstacle showed up pretty high. This one showed up even higher. Now we're going low. And so now we have some challenge to our game. Our game is not so straightforward as just going through these pipes as they go through in a straight line, but instead to try to avoid them, and they show up in different spots. Now, if I run into one, I get game over, but I don't have a score. How would you make a score counter show up on this game. What I would do is I would go to obstacle, and right before you delete a clone, let's make a variable called score. And every time you pass the obstacle, you should get 1 point. So we'll just add this change score by 1, then delete the obstacle. I don't really care about seeing the gravity on my screen, so I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to click hide. I'll put score up at the top. And now, as we fly, every obstacle we pass should give us a point. I see my score just went up, and I'm still flying along. I hit mine, and now my game is over. If you wanted to speed this up, how could you speed up the obstacles and make them move faster? We'd click on obstacle, and we change that change x by -5. We can make that a higher number, change x by -10. Another thing that we can do is we can add some sounds, or you can add a floor. We've taken about 20 minutes, and we've been able to create our Flappy Bird game. You click the spacebar, your bird flaps its wings and flies. If you don't press anything, it falls. We created obstacles, and our obstacles start on the right side of the screen and slide across the screen towards the left. When they get to the end of the screen, you get a point and the obstacle disappears, while more are being created. There are lots of ways you can improve this game. Could you make it so it makes a sound every time you get a point? Could you also make it play a sound whenever you lose? I want you to try to make this game your own and improve the game. Thanks for building with us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.